might be wondering which worship song I'm playing. It's not a worship song at all. It's The Everglow by Coldplay. But don't worry, it's not the first time someone's mistaken a Coldplay song for a worship song. In fact, in today's video, we're going to unpack why pretty much any worship song sounds a bit like Coldplay. All right, so we're talking about Coldplay's influence on modern worship music in today's video. I started off with that beautiful piano ballad called The Everglow, and of course, that iconic organ riff from the song Fix You. Now, I am a huge Coldplay fan, and it's been obvious for years and years that a lot of the people writing great modern worship songs are too. The premise of this video is pretty simple. How has Coldplay influenced the sounds, ideas, and parts that have popped up on modern worship music? We're gonna have fun breaking down some of the ideas that show up in Coldplay's music and drawing parallels to how you can implement them in modern worship music. So let's dive right in with this organ pad sound. This sound was used by Coldplay all across their classic album called X and Y. This is a huge breakthrough album for Coldplay, and the whole album has incredible production. My favorite part about the album is these epic synth textures, these huge sonic palettes that were created, and at the forefront of Fix You is this epic organ sound. Now, I believe the original came from one of the Korg workstation keyboards that was released in the early 2000s. It was just one of the stock organ presets, but if you don't have that exact Korg workstation available to you, you can still dial in an incredible, huge organ sound. This sound shows up across lots of different Hillsong worship classic songs. It's all over Phil Wickham. I was just playing Living Hope the other day, and you can hear this big sort of pipe organ sound in the background. And it's immediately recognizable when I play this riff. But you could use it to play any popular worship song as well, like King of Kings. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. Of course, you can layer it with pads and pianos. It's just this super angelic, classic sound. Cathedral organ, it doesn't get much more epic than that. And in my opinion, we wouldn't be using this sound as much as we do without Coldplay's influence. Next up, let's go back to The Everglow, the song I started this video with. It has that absolutely beautiful piano part. And you might recognize, if you know that song, that piano sound shows up across tons and tons of Coldplay songs. And you've always got Chris Martin on stage playing to tens of thousands, and he's got a keyboard in front of him, and out comes this really cool sort of fragile piano sound. Now, in the studio, sometimes I bet they're actually recording a real upright piano. Other times they might be using super expensive plugins. If you have Sunday keys, you can get this kind of sound by choosing one of the upright pianos. Or if you've got hardware or different software you use, look for the upright piano name, and you're going to be able to get in the ballpark. One of the great things about Coldplay in general and how they arrange their music is there's always this intimacy. They're one of the only artists I'm aware of that can write arena rock that fills a venue of 50,000 and every single person feels like they're right next to the band. It's because of the types of choices they make when they're picking instruments. This piano sounds close and intimate and warm, imperfect and fragile, even a little bit haunting. And the other thing that Coldplay does a lot of the time with their pianos is the piano itself will be something very intimate, like an upright or a felt piano, but then they'll put this huge, epic, spacey reverb on it So you have this juxtaposition of the intimate closeness of a piano in a living room, but then somehow also taking that same exact piano sound into a giant arena or even outer space sometimes. So we could open up this reverb effect here on the piano and increase the wet amount. And you can see now we have this close sound that also feels like it's somewhere else. And this piano sound shows up all across Coldplay's songs, but I'm especially a fan of how it's used in the Everglow. So you can find this kind of idea, these really haunting uprights, across lots of modern worship music as well. For example, we could take this idea and use it to play Who You Say I Am. Or we could take it into Graves into Gardens. Or of course, maybe this sound shows up most often in bands like Bethel Music. We could play God, I Look to You. God, I look to you. You're where my help comes from. You give me vision to see things like you do. It's so beautiful and haunting. There's all of this space and intimacy, and that I hear all over Coldplay's music. Next up, let's talk about one particular album. This might be my favorite Coldplay album of all time. It's the Viva La Vida album. This album came out after X and Y, which was a largely electronic influenced with these big, bright guitars and synths right in the middle. Viva La Vida felt like the exact opposite of that. All of a sudden, it was all acoustic guitars, strings, giant church bells. It felt like this sort of renaissance for the band in terms of the sound they used. But there's one instrument they introduced on that album that they've continued to use ever since, and I hear it all over modern worship music. That album prominently featured throughout this really unique sound that I don't think I'd ever really heard used in that way before. It wasn't just an upright piano sound. Although that sound was definitely in there, there was something layered over the top of it that made it so bright and inspiring, and it sounded acoustic and real and like there was a real human there playing it. So they got this sound by layering their pianos in with a dulcimer. So I can go here to Pianos in Sunday Keys and add in this SK dulcimer sound. And what they would do is they'd keep the piano right out in the front. They'd layer that dulcimer just underneath to add this extra bit of jangly brightness. So let me show you how that sounds. So the classic, the opener to that album goes, it's a... There's just so much brightness and all of this extra noise. So then we go to a song like Lion and the Lamb. See what I mean? The influence is right in front of us from that Viva La Vida album. So you can achieve this sound really easily. Just layer any piano sound that you find inspiring. I love using an upright piano because it's a little bit more imperfect. And then find a bright dulcimer sound. Take out some of the low end using EQ and then layer it underneath the piano. And you're especially going to want that brightness and attack in the right hand. So it makes your lead sounds super epic. It's all brightness, it's all jangle, it is in your face. And it shows up not just on Lion and the Lamb, but a lot of Bethel music songs will use this technique. It showed up on Hillsong recordings and tons of other artists as well. So you layer a piano and a dulcimer together, just like Coldplay did all over Viva La Vida. It's a really distinct sound that you should definitely try. Okay, this next sound we're talking about is a stack of several different sounds together. It shows up on this one album that Luke and I were just talking is maybe one of our favorites, but we don't know how to pronounce the name. Xyloto is maybe how it's pronounced. I don't know. Anyways, there's this one song on this Coldplay record. This album came out in 2011. It's called Paradise. It got crazy radio airplay. Maybe you've heard it. It is a great song if you haven't checked it out, but I just nerd out on how cool and epic and giant the synths sound. There's tons of brightness, there's tons of shimmer, there's tons of low end. And so I tried to dial this in really quick. In Sunday Keys, I combined a shimmer pad with this big, rich synth pad, which is really warm, and then this really huge, fat, dry saw pad that we sampled from a Juno. And if you take just one of these layers, it doesn't nail it. I mean, it's cool, but it doesn't sound like that. It's only when we bring all three layers into the mix that it goes to another level. This is one of the things that I think Coldplay does best. The way they layer sounds and textures together to create these incredible soundscapes and atmospheres in their music. So I don't know if this is a particular sound, but anytime you're trying to build intensity in your own band, it's a great idea to see what would happen if I just layered these two sort of very dissimilar pad sounds together. Oftentimes they'll add and complement each other. So we could use a giant pad sound like this for the big moments at the end of King of My Heart. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you are good, you're good. Oh. This pad is taking up so much space that you will fill the room, but in an incredible way while still leaving space because you're not playing tons of notes for the electric guitars, and you could even layer a piano on top. So thanks Coldplay for however you say that album and the song Paradise. These synth sounds are amazing. This part is from one of my favorite newer Coldplay songs. It's called Let Somebody Go. It's off their most recent album, and it's a duet between Chris Martin and Selena Gomez. It has this amazing sort of drippy, lush electric piano sound. It's a Rhodes electric piano, so Rhodes is one of the particular classic models of electric pianos, and there's this beautiful chorus, and it just sounds so lush. The electric piano sound itself is gorgeous, and you could take it into a worship song really easily. Coming back to the heart of worship when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. But for this, what makes it to me is not just the sound, but the way that this piano part was written for this original song, Let Somebody Go. Go listen to the original if you haven't. The interplay between the rhythmic components, the melody, and the lyrics is truly something beautiful. So this has popped up all over worship music as well. Just this nice, very recognizable piano part that doesn't get in the way of the melody. So if we were going to do Heart of Worship, when the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come. You can use some of these little riffs and movements between the chords inspired by that Coldplay song to just add and enhance to what is a beautiful song with simple chords like Heart of Worship. Now, of course, in worship music, it's not just about trying to sound like somebody else, but it's okay for artists to be inspired by beautiful art. And for me, when I listen to Coldplay, I get inspired. Maybe you do too. Maybe you were inspired by some of the sounds and ideas in this video. All the sounds I've used are coming from the Sunday Keys app running on my iPad. So if you'd like to learn more about Sunday Keys, check out the link in the description. The other thing I'll ask you to do is leave a comment and let us know which band or influence of modern worship music would you like to see us do a video on next. For now, hey, Chris Martin, if you ever want to hang out, just give me a ring. We'd love to talk about worship music with you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us. I hope that this was fun. Have a great day.
Milo Xylodo.
Milo Xylodo? That feels worse.
Yeah, I like Xylodo.
I like Xylodo.